All right, let's jump in. My name is Sheela Roth. I am the head of clinical education at Pearl. A little bit about my background is I have been in the space about 24 years this year. And I'm a trained hygienist, but my passion really has been in dental office growth management. And when I had a consulting business, I actually learned much more from my clients than I ever would have imagined and was able to then help other doctors and practices grow. So I am going to jump into our presentation tonight, and we are going to prepare your team for that end of the year capacity. So today, what I really kind of want to walk through in the next about 25 minutes is how are we doing with our marketing for the year-end capacity? What we're going to do about planning and also some strategies. One of my favorite is opportunity management. What are we going to do after we've made all these plans, and how are we going to really be proactive about accepting all the opportunities that's coming our way towards the end of the year? And then also how we can focus on leveraging technology to maximize this end of the year capacity. I'd like to see, possibly by a raise of hands or anybody wants to comment in the chat, how many of you, if you typically send out end of the year insurance letters or end of the year marketing, that you've already done that? I'd like to know by a show of hands. I see a raised hand there. 2 raised hands. I love it. Anybody else? This is probably the best time right now. We're heading into that final Q4. And what I want to really stop and make sure that we think about through the next 20 minutes we're together is this is not about focusing on just production for your practice. This is about understanding that patients pay for insurances, right? And patients have a lot of influx of time at the end of the year where their families are here. And there's a lot that our dental space needs to prepare for. So I just want to make sure that's really clear is this is how do we help our patients get the dentistry that they need so that we are able to be very mindful about, sorry about that, some AI stuff popping up, about having that best year end we possibly can. So when we talk about marketing, I love to hear those of you that have focused already on that end of the year letter. Sample letter. Happy if you want to send me your email in the chat. I'd be happy to send you a sample letter. But I think sometimes, in the dental space, we think about this all the time. We're like, yeah, end of the year letter went out, everything's ready to go. But patients aren't thinking about insurance maximums, or, my kids are coming home from college, or this is really a good time for me to get my own health ready for the start of the new year, right? Or get that smile ready for those wonderful holiday parties, whatever it may be. But when it comes to marketing, number 1 step, end of the year letter. Number 2 step, I think is really important, is to think about your text messaging that's going out right now. Have we really maximized that? Have we updated it lately? So some things I found was, is it working well for me? These automated, text messages or emails that you're sending out, or even the voicemail you have you checked that? Is it in alignment with your practice philosophy and your marketing strategy? Do you say, hey, we're here from 7 to 7, we're here late for you? Now that would be great, but that is one of the practices I worked in. But are we able to really focus on taking that same patient care and weaving it in through all of our marketing strategies? This is important for the entire year, but have we really sat down and looked at, are we sending the intervals out to text messages appropriately? Are we maximizing our patients that need to get in before the end of the year on all the overdue patients? Have we sent maybe an extra campaign? What about whitening, right? A lot of teams will do a whitening for the end of the year. So you could advertise in your office as well as in your text messaging or emails that buy a gift certificate for a loved one, right? And they come in and typically they get free x-rays and exam, or you can charge them a small fee for that. But they love to gift these things to their family members. So That's been a real fun thing to get patients thinking about. Yes, I want to whiten my teeth, but oh, yeah, I do have something else I need to get done. So it's that real benefit of thinking of all of these things that we're currently using in our dental practice and have we really maximized those? Some people do specials like the day after Thanksgiving, right? They want to open up, and there's a lot of people that come to the dentist, believe it or not, or they'll do 20% off or something. So when we think about marketing, it's great to see that those of you that are sending end of the year letters have already done that. And those of you that have not, it is not too late. I like to not send out things like, you know, don't, use it or lose it. The concept would be more like, hey, let's make sure that we use our insurance before it renews, something like that. So I think as far as marketing goes, that is the number one best thing we can start with for the foundation of making sure we're maximizing the capacity in the end of the year. Now, planning, right? It kind of sneaks up on all of us, right? I just got a Christmas card the other day. I couldn't believe it. I'm like, it's Thanksgiving. I have not done my family cards. And it's the same every year in the dental space. We always used to say when I was managing a practice that we would start planning in December or even May. The reality is we probably should have started in March. But again, it's not too late. So I would encourage you to think of a couple strategies, even going back to work this week, right? We have Thanksgiving coming, but have we talked to our team about this influx? Have we thought about ways where what is the busiest time throughout the day? Do we need to add more shifts? Do we need to open a Saturday? Do we need to open a Sunday? Do we need to open a later night? Some practices are keeping sacred restorative days because this hygiene influx between November and December, they'll add extra restorative days, right? So if the marketing is working and we're getting our patients back in the door, which we typically do in December, we need to make sure that our team has come together and strategize for this year in capacity. So key points would be, have we looked at our schedule? Do we think we have prepared for enough capacity? Look at all of your hygiene for the last 6 months, right? Do we have ways once we send that end of the year letter in to get the patient back in the door? Do we have enough staff? Think about how other types of industries plan for seasonal employees, right? Wouldn't that be nice if we had, well, we could do a whole webinar on the dental shortage, right? That's happening in our industry as far as hygienists and doctors and assistants. But wouldn't it be great if we had seasonal hygienists and seasonal doctors to come in and really help maximize that end of the year? But we can think about that. Think about in your practice right now, do you have maybe a dental assistant that's working in the front that maybe could help a doctor in the back? Or a hygienist, if somebody calls in sick, and she doesn't have an appointment, could she stand in the front? What can we do in our practices today to be mindful about staffing in areas that are really important? So my last practice, I worked like 4 to 7 p.m. was what we used to call happy hour. Really, it was, you couldn't find a parking place. And it was when all the kids would come in after work and after school. The parents would come in after work. But during that time, it was like a restaurant. All hands were on deck, right? This wasn't when we made recall phone calls. This wasn't when we were billing insurance. This is when the staff members that were technically working on regular tasks throughout the day would really focus on how do we maximize the patients that are here now, right? How do we give them the best experience? How do we make sure that we're getting them the treatment plans before they walk out the door? And this takes a lot of planning. Now, again, what I would encourage you is it is not too late to focus on how are we going to get our team together to think about maximizing the next 6 weeks, right? So again, strategies come from thinking about where does your practice currently do very well? And how do we repeat that in the next 6 weeks? One of mine was we would do Saturdays, right? And in Saturday appointments, we would see, 57 hygiene patients on a Saturday. And what we would do is we would make sure that we had enough or extra treatment coordinators. And what we found was When we had more team members that were able to take on an extra day here and there or add an extra shift, we were able to serve our patients better. In doing so, we were able to have more production coming out of those exams, and patients were able to actually understand the amount that they needed to pay before they left. So we would move some dental assistants to the front and also some front team members to the back. Because again, marketing is great, planning is great, but what happens when they all show up, right? And I think we have to be very mindful of these opportunities so that we can make sure we're maximizing them. I love this picture because it really, to me, is the pivotal point of everything we all do on a daily basis, right? The front desk team does an incredible job answering the phone. We welcome them, we greet them, we get them back on time. You know, you may or may not do a morning huddle, but your entire team is really doing their very best throughout the day. It comes down to that one point, right, that we all went into dentistry for, which is to help others. Did we do everything we could so that when the doctor presented the dentistry, the patient had time to ask the questions they needed and come to the front with somebody that welcomed them, that understood their treatment, gave them the cost, and allowed them to get scheduled? And we love that entire cycle, right, throughout the day, every day of our dental space, every day, Monday through Friday, whatever, however long you're working. But what about during the end of the year? It's really sped up. I will tell you a mistake I made, believe it or not, when I thought I was doing this incredible job of maximizing all of the patients. We did incredible marketing campaigns, and kind of a blind spot for me was thinking about how many treatment presenters I needed to be mindful of so that when the doctor was recommending the dentistry, we could present the dentistry. And there were times where there was that space where they had to go, oh, Susie's not here. She'll be back from lunch later. And there were patients walking out the door. And the other mistake I made was I didn't plan well for end of the year space. So I had so much hygiene. Used to manage about 22 hygienists. And in doing so, we saw around 1,800 patients per month in hygiene. It was a single practice, 2 owner doctors. But what I didn't plan for was all of the restorative that was going to come out. And my schedule was already filled by November. So I was able to do all of these wonderful things I told you, marketing, strategy, everything else. But then when the patients showed up, we didn't have the space to serve the patients. So these are the things I'm hoping that as we all move into the end of the year, this pivotal moment right here where the patient accepts the dentistry, are we prepared to deliver the cost for them and to have an appointment that's suitable for them to have the dentistry done, right? So this is a full team tool. We all have to be prepared. And what I'm showing you here, obviously, is we're going to talk a little bit about technology and innovations, but I can't stress enough how much I learned from my patients about that treatment presentation moment and how that interesting scenario when I would see a patient, right, as a hygienist, and we'd have an entire discussion with the doctor. They'd walk to the front desk and tell the front desk team, oh yeah, the doctor said I could wait. And I was like, that was not the message that we actually recommended. So the disconnect between the patient's actual treatment presentation and them scheduling is something in dentistry we need to close the gap on, right? There is so many thoughts that the patient has in that 30-second walk that you start to wonder, how can we help them? This, of course, is a wonderful product where you can use visual aids to be able to move into sharing treatment plans with patients. When patients understand their dentistry, they're going to accept it earlier and more often, which is the whole goal, right? Of patients getting, trusting us again, seeing these visual aids, asking these questions, and for you doctors moving through treatment planning much faster, and hygienists, the scaling and route planning discussions, right? We need to think about using technology to give us time back for our lives so that we can spend more time building relationships with our patients. Everybody in the dental space knows, I'm sure you would all agree with me. You can give a thumbs up or raise your hand, but these patients tell us these incredible things in their lives. They trust us to tell us all kinds of things, right? We are the ones that we see them in 6 months and we say, how was graduation, or how was your daughter's wedding? And we need to think about leveraging technology to continue to have time for these relationships. I do want to talk about, like, when I go into the doctor now, I used to greet my doctor, and I've seen her for years, and now she comes in with this laptop and I can barely see her face, and I'm thinking, wow, this is not what we want technology to do, right? We want it to be innovative, but we don't want it to remove that human touch and that human interaction. So again, finding ways to leverage things that are going to help you. Morning huddles, half people do them, half people do not, right? I used to sit in morning huddles. They were not my favorite thing until we started understanding opportunity management, which was the patients are here for their basic cleaning, right? They want to know that I get a free toothbrush, I had a checkup, everything looks great, and I get to go home. But in reality, we're preparing on the 24 hours, 48 hours ahead by checking insurance, looking into their chart, making sure we talk to Kimberly about her outstanding fillings. We have an entire plan to take the very best care of them. But when I look back, that's a lot of time to prepare. Some people just come in the morning, they turn on the computer, they check the voicemail, and away they go. The problem with lack of preparation is we miss opportunities, right? There were times where patients would walk up to the front desk and they would say, "Hey, are you ever going to talk to me about doing that implant crown that I've been waiting months to get?" Right? And in our practice, it was great because at the time it was like, that's such an easy appointment. And I can't believe that we had that slip through our fingers. But when we have technology like this one with Pearl, we're able to audit every single chart for you, give you a roadmap for your day to not only surface possible same-day dentistry, but also protect cancellations, right? If there's a opening in the hygiene schedule, we can tell you in 2 seconds throughout your entire day which restorative patients are overdue, maybe want to stay for hygiene. But I think as we move into the end of the year, one of my favorite things as a treatment coordinator was to take patients that are in hygiene and see if we could save them a trip to the dentist. If I had an opening in my doctor's schedule, I could have that patient stay for the day. Now, some of you might say, I am so booked out, Sheila. There's no way I could do that. But think about this convenience-centric world we're living in, right? I mean, I could probably DoorDash my dinner right now and have it here before this webinar is even over. We are used to this convenience-centered world that we live in, which is, I need something, can we do it now? And there's so many opportunities for us to ask the patients, would you like to stay today if we could take care of that crown for you? And I'll tell you an interesting story. About 80% of patients, and we've done some research, have said yes when it works out for them. But if we don't know as a team at 8 a.m. how to manage those opportunities throughout the day, those patients walk out the door every hour. So what am I saying? Use some sort of way to help facilitate these opportunities throughout your day, to get a roadmap for your entire day at 8 a.m. for all of your patients to see who's due for x-rays, who's overdue for hygiene, do we have a miscoded prophy, what unscheduled dentistry is done. And even inside of Pearl, we talk a lot about opportunities that we've found in the x-rays that aren't in the treatment plan yet. That's probably because there's so much going on in our daily workflow. Sometimes it slips through the cracks, right? So when we look at opportunity management, I'm going to tell you one of my stories. And this will be an interesting thing because when I was working on patients, my doctor started explaining to me what opportunity management was. And he's like, Sheila, you have to ask them if they want to stay for their appointment after your cleaning. And I thought, I'm terrified of the dentist, which is funny, right? Um, I don't want to stay ever. I want to get my cleaning, and then another day I have to completely prepare to have a dental appointment. And there are some people that have that same philosophy, but I would start asking the patients, like, okay, Bob, and I would say it in my own fearful voice, would you like to stay today to do the crown? And Bob would say, "Yeah, you can do that today while I'm here. I took the day off." And I said, "Yeah, we could do that today." And so it worked out great. I would numb him up, doctor would come in, life was good. I started seeing happy patients, and that was surprising. But think about all the other opportunities that happen throughout the day. Do we scan for Invisalign, right? Do we scan for night guards? Do we take impressions? What my history of what I've learned and was able to kind of take back into these practices that I helped grow was patients tell us what they need and what they want, right? Um, if they call on the phone and they say, "Hey, I'd love to whiten my teeth," and they make it all the way through our entire practice and they go to the front desk and nobody's talking about whitening their teeth, right? Have we done our job? So managing the opportunity starts with listening to the patient on the first phone call, reviewing those charts to make sure you know exactly what happened last time, and being mindful in the morning of all the opportunities that you have throughout your day to help serve your patients. Um, there is a team that I worked with, and they would prepare for Saturdays on Friday. And so they were using some of the Pearl Daily Huddle sheets that I was showing you. And what they found was in the hygiene department, there were patients coming in on Saturdays and late nights, and they were there for their cleanings. But we started asking them at the beginning of the appointment, you're here today for your cleaning, but I noticed that you have some dental work like a crown done. Would you like to see if we could do that today? And the patients would say, well, sure, but what about my cleaning? Well, you have to come back in some offices and we could do the cleaning at that time. So we would save you a trip. And that was surprising that people were starting to say yes. So my point is, as we move into that end of the year, are we aligned with what our patients are asking? Are we really ready for these opportunities? Now, somebody might think, well, Sheila, what does that hygienist do? But when we know the value of chair time, we know that that chair time for that cleaning is really insignificant compared to the crown that we just recovered from that appointment. And most importantly, we saved our patients time. So I think one of my favorite things when people say, we just don't have time and we don't have the ability, we don't have staffing anymore. And I agree, I completely understand. I tried to hire staff for years, and it's very concerning, the mass exodus in dentistry we're dealing with right now. But we have to be strategic, right? We have to think about ways where we're able to not worry so much about these problems, and how do we overcome them, right? How are we going to say, I'm going to make it through the end of the year? We're going to do this together. Let's find simple ways. And there are so many ways that we're using automation and innovation these days. And people sometimes fear AI, right? They think it's going to come and take their job. But the reality is we have enough jobs for a bunch of AIs and a bunch of humans, and we need all of that. And the scarcity, again, in the shortage in dentistry is very challenging for us. But what about all of the basic technology we're using on a daily basis? There's all kinds of things, automating phone calls, right? Getting those text messages that return back to the patient, like, sorry, we missed your call. Love to hear back from you. Text us with whatever you might need. We'll call you soon. Automated perio charting is out there now. And we're starting to move into automated charting where we're going to just talk and it'll finally record. I know that's in hospitals, but now we're seeing it in dentistry. Pearl's Practice Intelligence Schedule will color code your patients. Of every single person that's blue has either unscheduled or undiagnosed dentistry, right? You click on a restoration, you're going to see all these opportunities that exist. If it's AI, it's undiagnosed. If it's a calendar, it's unscheduled. But it really, imagine trying to do that throughout your day. There's no way you have the time to do that. So I look back at the days where we talked about confirming patients. And I used to do that. I think I was like 18 and I would call all of these patients before we had all these automated reminders. And now we don't have to worry about doing that, right? So we have more time in our practice to spend with our patients. I think when we think about end of the year recall, this is an incredible opportunity to think about, is every recall patient exactly the same? Well, yes, every recall patient needs to come in and get a cleaning, but there's a lot of patients that need the dentist more than others, right? So when we're thinking about doing recall, let's find a system that'll help us see unscheduled recall, but also opportunities from a restorative perspective. Because in reality, those patients need to see us sooner, right? If I have my husband who's never had a cavity in his life, he's due for a cleaning. Yes, I'm going to get him in too. But my son who has an outstanding filling, I'm probably going to make sure for myself that I get them in sooner, right? So when we look at performance recall, there's ways where you can look at opportunity management to make sure that the patients that need you the most are getting back into your chair sooner. So that's been really helpful when we think about working through these phone calls that we're making, right? Insurance verification. This is one of my favorite parts in the dental space now that's really giving teams back time, right? Back to that pivotal moment we talked about is there are two key places where we need to think about our case presentation, um, whether that's the doctor and also the front office member, but also are we giving the front office team enough tools to be able to really automate some of these mundane tasks so they can focus on their day. I know before we started using Pearl for insurance verification, we had somebody working 8 hours a day straight verifying patients. And that's 17 to 20 clicks, whether you're doing it online, and an average of 8 to 12 minutes on a phone call, right? And that's like on a good day. So if we can present the dentistry in color, and if we can actually give the front office teams, this beautiful roadmap throughout the day so they know which patients need dentistry, what if we actually did the cherry on top where we said, hey, all your patients in the next 5 days are already verified. We're going to give you a full breakdown. And in Pearl's very unique platform, we look back at all the history of those two specific procedures as well. And that gives the front office team not only more time, but more confidence because they know they can feel like, great, I see on one page all of the insurance remaining. I know who's verified. So if I have same day dentistry, that part's already done for me. It doesn't eliminate the need to call patients, 100%, but about 80% of the patients don't need to be called anymore. So as you're thinking about automated chart audits, automated probing, automated insurance verifications, those are the things we can remove so that we can put the humans back in the loop to present dentistry, to have in what I call a patient concierge, right? One of my favorite jobs was I got to walk like I was opportunity manager. So I'd walk up and down the halls and I would be kind of like the person at a really nice restaurant where they would be looking, they're like, how's your dinner? And they're looking at how much longer I'm going to be in that table, right? But the reality was when I was walking up and down, not only could I support my staff, but I could also make sure that I was able to intercept patients or add additional things that patients wanted to stay for today, or just be there to say, I see a patient leaning up and they're trying to look at their phone. I'm like, hey, do you need a pillow? And that was like such a fun job for me. I didn't get to do it very often, but in between the day, those little moments, believe it or not, those are your retention builders. Those are your patients that are going to be your walking advertisements. So thinking about automating mundane tasks so that your team can spend more time with your patients, right? That's the key part here. Now, before we finish up for tonight, what I'd love to do is kind of stop my screen. I'm going to do one more kind of fun exercise, but I'd like to see if anybody wanted to put some questions in the chat about anything that I was speaking about tonight. Or I would also love to know if there are any suggestions that you guys would like to share with our dental space here. And if there's anything that you have found that's been very successful for your practices, we'd love for you to share that. So I'm gonna just wait a few minutes to see what you guys have to say here. I see there's still quite a few people, so I'm hoping we get some comments in the chat. So I have one person that did say that people started with text messages in August. Let's see what else. People also are saying not usually, but we usually do, but we have been super busy. I'm guessing, I want to call on Cheryl if that's possible. Are you talking about sending reminders or are you talking about morning huddles? I'd love for you to, if you can unmute or even put in the chat, we'd love to hear from you. And do we have any office managers or doctors? Here we go, end of the year letters, perfect. So those are, it takes time. I get it. I totally get it. And I think the important part here is there's so much time we spend focusing on, things happening tomorrow or recovering from yesterday. We need to focus on what are we going to do when our patients arrive, but also how we can take a few minutes in the next week with our daily processes to think about what does our schedule look like? Right? Sometimes we don't even look at tomorrow until we get to tomorrow, right? We assume everything's confirmed, or we surely don't look at the next day. But I would encourage you today to take a look at your text messages. Make sure those are all going out to the at the times, the intervals you'd like. I would make sure and encourage you to release that end of the year insurance. Maybe think about that insurance letter. Maybe think about doing a whitening campaign. That's been really fun for a lot of people where they come and get gift certificates. I would make sure that you think about your recall. It's good to reactivate patients. If your practice isn't full, this is a great time. Send them a nice little text message. And then also, what are we doing to prepare for those same day opportunities, right? Are we using some systems that would be helpful? Are we able to automate those kinds of things? I'm going to ask you guys a quick question. Have you guys ever used ChatGPT? I'd love to see a raise of hands. I'm going to share this funny thing with you because I put this in today into ChatGPT and I said, I wanted to see what technology is telling us, right? What is the best way for dental practice to prepare for the end of the year capacity to enhance overall office production? And I thought, I wonder what it's going to say. The funny thing was, it's everything we're doing, right? I mean, I know it's on the internet, but I was very interested to see if my practice was maximizing all of their abilities. And it was interesting: insurance benefits, treatment plans, hygiene recalls, leveraging technology, optimizing the schedule. And it's interesting to see that not a whole lot has changed, right? We have AI everywhere, we have automation, but we all know what to do. We just need to make sure that we are taking the time to do that, because we don't want you to miss out on the end of the year, so that you guys are able to focus on really kind of ending the year strong. So I'm going to put up our CE. And I do want to make sure that we see if there are any additional questions you guys have. I'd love to hear from you. Kimberly, are you still here? Do you have any questions or anything you'd like to add? I know we had her kind of in the background, but anybody else, any questions? Let's see. I've heard plenty of docs starting to feel something I want to start doing. Okay, so Tony, I'm going to reach out to you. You said you had plenty of docs starting to, and I feel it's something you want to start doing. Can you tell me what you're referring to? Oh, I see. Yes, in the response to the chat GPT. Yes. So there's a lot going on inside of ChatGPT. It is a great way for you to write your end of the year letter. So I would definitely recommend you try that out. Teams are starting to use that for claims submissions and stuff like that, but I don't know if we're quite there yet. It's very interesting where the industry is going with all of these automations. And I think just for you guys to know too, there is a concept that, you know, we are concerned that AI will take over our world, right? And I want you to open your mind and think about how many times you're using AI on a daily basis now, right? You're using Alexa, you're using Siri, ChatGPT possibly, even our, you know, cars that are driving themselves, bank fraud alerts, right? Facial recognition. There's friends we have at Pearl here that are grocery shopping without taking their wallets. So they just go in and buy their groceries and we know that what we bought. Is that scary? No, I think that's great, right? I think it's wonderful to not have to worry about that. But when it comes to the dental space, we don't see a huge influx of staff coming anytime soon. What we do see is ways that we're going to need to think strategically and methodically on how to move into making sure that our patients still get the very best care while we are under this constraint. So I do want to make sure that we spend just a few minutes talking a little bit about, let's see here, a couple questions here. More about using AI. Yep, perfect. And also, let me walk you through one more small little information part here. I just wanted to see if there was any more sharing going on tonight before we jumped into one final slide here. All right, I think everybody's watching football. Is that happening? I'm just kidding. I'm just kidding. Webinars are always fun, guys, because you're just sitting here talking to yourself and it's always kind of entertaining.
We're all here, Sheila. The game's not that interesting anyways, but there was a chat there from Dr. Thomas. If you could just check, he had a question about practice intelligence.
Yes, absolutely. Thank you. Okay, let's see. I tried to get my team to use practice intelligence with Pearl. Lack of use, and I wasn't sure how to push them to use it. What advice do you have and how to position it? Good. Okay. So the question we have, guys, is about practice intelligence. And what I want to do is just kind of pop you into what we're talking about. There are so many ways that teams can use all kinds of AI. And I think moving through, how can we overcome this hurdle of dealing with change management, right? Now, when we look at using radiological AI, that is simple. It already exists. It's ready to go inside of your imaging system. But when we move into looking at a new practice intelligence side of things, they need to know what's in it for me, right? And I think the important part here is letting them know that there are things that they're doing on a daily basis to help their day, help their staff members, help each other, help their patients. But are they able to use practice intelligence to find time back, right? So we look at ways to have the easiest thing that they need to do by automation. So for example, if I was talking about using practice intelligence, I would say, let's start with the morning huddles, right? Some team members don't do morning huddles. Using that chart audit to be able to give each provider the ability to look at their day and say, here's all my patients, here's what time they're coming in, here's all their unscheduled dentistry. And for a hygienist myself, we're working on, you don't have to come to work 20 minutes early, right? Let me find that slide here. I used to have to go to work, guys, like 30 minutes early to audit my charts to find out which patients were due for x-rays and which patients needed to have an FMX versus bite wings. And then also my doctor would always come in and he would say, Sheila, Do we have any unscheduled dentistry? Where's this patient at? Are they ready to schedule, right? So having number one, morning huddles, chart audits done, your team is already going to benefit from not having to come to work early. And guess what else? It refocuses your entire team on what's happening today. So your whole team is on the same page. Your assistants know which patients need x-rays. Do they need bite wings? Do they need an FMX? Your hygienists know exactly what to do in their day, and everybody gets that per provider. So those of you that have routing slips, that's one way to do it. But think about putting this on top of routing slips. This is a full customizable roadmap for each provider for every patient on your schedule. So that's the first way I would use practice intelligence, is use those daily chart audits. The second way I would use practice intelligence would be to think about every doctor that comes in. When you guys come in, I know you have so much going on because you're looking at your day, you're looking at all the hygiene. And sometimes we're looking at, is there ways to make my day more productive, right? And in all of these blue patients for the doctors, they can hover over the opportunity bar and see, 6 restorations that maybe they need to add to their schedule today. Hygienists can look at which patients are due for hygiene, and also, which patients are due for scaling and root planing. Or does this patient need to move into a perio maintenance, but we actually scheduled them for a prophy? So the number one way to do practice intelligence would be to do the morning huddle. The second way would be to use this schedule as a color-coded opportunity bar. And the third thing would be to have your front desk team be able to pull recall. People always say, well, we have that inside a practice management system, Sheila. Yes, you do. But Pearls is going to allow you to see all the patients that have unscheduled dentistry in addition to their existing overdue hygiene appointment. And then in this same call sheet area, we want to alert the teams that we have done the before, during, and after research for them. So before they come in, we're going to audit every chart, daily huddles. While they're here, every patient is color coded with an opportunity: purple for bite wings, pink for FMX. And then when they leave, we're going to have a list that says, hey, the doctor recommended treatment on all of these patients in the last 14 days, but they did not schedule. Please give them a call. So it really is a checks and balances that gives their team back time. Now you add in the insurance verification. Really, on average, you're giving back your team members 2 hours at a time per day to now focus on their patients or get caught up on all of those things that they've been working on. So I think that would be how I would answer that question. Any other questions? Let me see if there's anything in the chat. Okay, excellent. So I am going to put up our QR code in just a moment here for you guys to be able to scan that and do your CEs. I do want to point out too that if you guys had any questions about Pearl, you're welcome to scan that code and be able to get a demo if you're interested. It would be great to have you look at the radiologic side of it, as well as having your office managers look at the practice intelligence and the insurance verification side of Pearl. Because again, we have to find ways to give our teams back time so that they are able to spend more time with the patients. Okay, let me share my screen. I do want to make sure that we have a small little shout out to our Patterson family here today as well. So we've been really enjoying our partnership with Patterson, and I want to make sure we thank everybody who came in from the Patterson team. So this is going to be your QR code, and we are hoping that you will click on that guy. Please know that you need the name Pearl to be able to get that all the way through the registration. And once you register for that, then the CE comes directly from CE Zoom. And again, I will stay on for a few of you that may have some additional questions. All right, so in summary, we're going to send our letter out. We're going to make sure we are prepared with our team, looking at our schedules, planning for end of the year. We're going to think about how other types of industries use seasonal employees, right? Can we shift anybody around? Have we really maximized every appointment by pre-planning, right? Can you use automated systems like Pearl or other companies like Bola to do, AI charting for you with the probings, or all kinds of different ways to find time to save your team's time? And are we ready to maximize our patients when they come in? Is the whole team involved, and are we all prepared for that? So I would encourage you to think about using systems that would give your team back time. Pearl's a great option for you. We'd love to do a demo for your team. And again, thank you tonight for coming. And also thank you to our Patterson team. I will stay on for a few more minutes to see if anybody has any additional questions. I think that the important part to take away too is think about when you are presenting dentistry to your patients in those pivotal moments, right? Are we able to really focus on how our patients are perceiving their x-rays? Do they see what we're seeing? Do they understand it? And unfortunately, the answer is only about, I think it's 64% of patients have no idea about the x-rays that we're showing them, right? And when we talk about what is that gap between the patients walking from the back to the front, it's probably because they didn't really understand exactly what we were explaining. And we see all different shades of gray, and we can see, decay from miles away on a radiograph. But can our patients see that, right? And I think that is the key take-home message too, is finding ways to be able to share differences on case presentations, case acceptance, and hopefully you guys will all be able to get a quick demo on Pearl and how you can kind of go from night to day in your treatment presentations. So we look forward to hearing from all of you, and hopefully we will see you on some upcoming webinars. And again, love to hear from you. You guys all have our emails. And again, thank you to the Patterson team. Have a wonderful evening. And I'd love to hear from all of you that put one or two little of these tips and tricks into your practice and had a wonderful year end. So have a great night, and we will see you in the future.